idea how long, how this is going to work. I did that test earlier. Seemed like we had, comments were like, yeah, it sounded pretty good. So, and there's a reason I'm doing this. Well, so behind me is the sewing room. I guess I might as well just kind of jump in. Well, maybe I'll just kind of BS for just a little bit and see if people join us here and give it a couple minutes. But yeah, I wanted to try it out with the phone because I'm going to end up doing, and I'll get into this a little bit more. I'm going to end up doing a lot more phone stuff too. And yeah, anyway, getting ahead of my skis a little bit. Yeah, I don't see anybody so far. The little thing up there that still says, okay, I don't know what that is, but it it looks like OnlyFans. It's top fans, but it's got a weird little crown, and I don't know. It's just making me laugh. So all right, we got a couple people here. So all right, I'm gonna probably jump into it. I'm going to keep this short, by the way. I know I always say that, but seriously, going to keep it short. Probably 15, 30 minutes. I'll see if I can. Hey, VTech Moonwalker, good to see you, sir. So, I guess I'll kind of probably just jump right into it for the folks that are here now, and then I'll maybe reiterate what I'm about to say a couple times over the next 30 minutes, and then some fill in between. But so we're done. We're not going to run the business, like the business we were running, right? So we're done with that. Cindy's moving to Kentucky to be closer to family. I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen with me with my surgery, but if I get the chance, I am going to jump right into it, so I can have the winter to recuperate. And then I'm looking at moving in spring, maybe Eastern Tennessee, maybe the UP, maybe Western South Dakota. So I've got some work on my own to do. But so we're done as far as the website is still up. We're not going to be taking orders for gear. But Cindy and I both, really kind of realize and just, hey, let's just be honest. But I love this job. Cindy loved her job. We loved making gear. We loved trying to be an American-made company, and trying to get that to come back to life, that whole pride in America and top quality gear and craftsmanship. So I'm not 100% sure what this is going to look like, right? You can already see there's some moving pieces and we'll have to figure it out. And we might execute in 30 or 60 days too. So stay tuned. Again, I think I'm going to be jumping all over as Blackbeard says. If Blackbeard, if you're in the comments, he likes to say it's just a stream of consciousness, otherwise known as Mark, could you just shut up? But no, so, maybe 30, 60, again, just, I'm going to have to play that one out. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to make small numbers of items, like me, I'm just making this up. Don't quote me here. Like 4 mothers, 4 G3s, it's, and 2 of them are in this colorway, 2 of them are in that colorway. There's, we're not doing the customization. Here you go. If you want them, you want them, and then next month, we'll see what we do or how much time we have and come up with. So on the gear side, the CLS gear, I think that's what we're going to do. That's kind of the path forward, and we'll stay in the fight as long as we can stay in the fight because we enjoy doing it. And, if you've seen, if you saw some of the previous videos, I mean, really, I've talked to almost every customer personally, and it's awesome. I mean, again, it's a great job. Have had so much fun, and you guys and gals are all such great people. It's just, that's just been a huge, awesome part of it. But then as I was kind of saying, I think, well, here, and I'll just pause. Let's see. Again, I got to get accustomed to this. So I'll pause for a second. Snowshoe checking in. Long Beach said hi. Thanks, Long Beach. And then Lefty Survival saying hi. VTech maybe still here. Okay, so yeah. Well, I'm doing this on the phone. I actually want to practice and I want to get a sense of how much battery this eats up in my phone because I'm going to start doing a lot more of the phone stuff. So like I said, so on the gear side of it, we're done in the grander, larger scheme of it. And we're going to collapse that down into more of, semi-retired hobby type of thing. Cindy's going for that. And, tell the truth, look, I know somebody's going to say, yo, what a whiner, but, I did 30 years of my life in the service of the country, one way or the other. And then I've been doing this. Hey, at what point in time are we just all supposed to keep working until we're 80 now? No one gets to retire. And that kind of goes into the studies and observations group aspect of it because, boy, it sure does seem like that, doesn't it? No one really is taking care of infrastructure of their own people, but all this money's going out and doing other things, and you get a ticket for jaywalking, but hey, what did he do? He pled the fifth 111 times or something like that. And no one's ever going to be held responsible. And so that's kind of, I guess, a segue. I'm not trying to be political. No one is going to be held responsible. And so the studies and observation group. So by, slowing things down, I think that's going to give me the chance to finally get off my ass and do that. And I really enjoy that. So there was a crow that just cawed just a few seconds ago. I don't know if the phone picked it up, but just as an example of the studies and observations group, I was just talking to Learn Me Something, and we were just talking about crows, the relationship between, animal species, crows and deer, and then, telling a story about a long time ago, there was a noise and I'm like, yeah, it's a crow. And then this buddy's, it wasn't a crow. And I'm just shaking my head like, why would you don't even know, all you think is a crow goes, caw, caw, caw. Man, the crows have like something like 10 to 20 different calls, and they all mean something, and there's a purpose. And, my comment was, I've noticed, hunting, that I think there's a correlation sometimes between crows and deer. And then Anthony looked it up real quickly. And, so a lot of the studies and observation group is going to be a lot of that kind of conversation. It's a full moon yesterday, still, full tonight, but there's so much you can learn from. You don't need a phone. You don't need a watch. You don't need a GPS. You really don't need most of that. Those are nice to have. I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm just saying, you can navigate, using the sun, the moon, the stars. You can tell time based on those objects. You can tell time of year based on those objects. You can tell, and that information is just back into the hunting conversation, or maybe fishing, or if you're doing any boating or whatever, that's going to talk to you about high tides, low tides, gravitational pulls, how much illumination you have, for example. Hey, I don't have nods and I have to move at night. Well, okay, once you can figure out, and the moon works in a cycle, right? 30 days, but, it's basically first quarter 7, full moon 15, third quarter 22, and then new moon at 30, right? Kind of something like that. But so once you start understanding some of these things, not only do you have a calendar, when you're going to move, if you're moving at night without nods, et cetera, fishing, hunting, camping, all of this stuff comes into play. So for the studies and observation group, I want to do a lot of that. And I wasn't sure how this would work. So I just got a text message. I was like, what happens if somebody calls me? Is it just going to ruin the live stream? I don't know. We're going to find out. I don't know. But so the studies and observation group is going to be a lot of that. Getting out, I'll probably be doing some gear reviews. Hey, this guy's got a cool piece of gear. If you guys check this out, I use this all the time. They're really handy. I've got my phone plugged in right now to, just one of those, standalone chargers, just because I don't know how much juice doing this live stream on my phone, how it would eat the battery. So I've got it plugged in for backup just in case. As a matter of fact, I'm glad I just said that. It had turned itself off for some reason. So I just looked over and saw that, hey, why aren't you still blue? I'm like, oh, okay. All right, let's see here. Couple comments. And then I'm going to kind of reiterate what I just said in case somebody came in a little bit late. Enjoy, highs. Thank you to everybody. I can't, because when I normally do live streams, I do it on a software on the computer. So I can, stream to multiple platforms. So I can stream to multiple platforms at the same time. And, I can pop up and interact. So I'm not used to doing just what YouTube has. So give me a sec. So I'm not going to, I don't know. I'm sure I probably could pop those on the screen, but here's a kind of interesting one. Sitting and observing while at petroglyphs is amazing. Takes years to read what others wrote. Yeah. So like that kind of stuff, right? And I'm sure I've had this conversation with many of you if we've talked on the phone, during the customer, orders or something like that. There's so much knowledge that we don't even have anymore. We don't possess. We don't even care to, to think about. And that's why, I just mentioned, the moon and the sun, the celestial objects. Most people just think it's, the bright orange blob, or it's, something you see at night sometimes if you're, not too drunk, or if you don't live in a city where all the, urban light just kind of wipes it out. But, there's so much information there, and it's not really hard. And once you learn it, and once you kind of get into that zone, you just, everything becomes more natural. Again, like, conversations about, then you start looking at animals and wildlife, and and then seasons come into play. This whole thing about crows had to do with a conversation about birds, and oh, that bird only makes that one sound. Like, you haven't been outside very much. Birds, depending on the species, make multiple sounds. Crows aren't stupid. They actually have a small basic language, and blue jays have certain, more than one, cry, and et cetera and et cetera. So just when it comes to, like, getting out, and I personally want to challenge myself, and I want to learn and refresh those skills, and I want to learn more about foraging. So the studies and observation group, just kind of wrapping that up, and I'll come back over to the comments. It's going to be a lot of hands-on, and I don't know exactly how that's going to look. I might put it behind a paywall like Patreon, and it's like, $1 a month type of thing, just to do that, because there's just, the internet's full of fools, and I just can't abide fools anymore. So, I'm really looking for the adult table conversationalists, like you guys. You are that guy, because, you get it. You want to do better. You want to, be more self-sufficient, self-reliant, prepared, and that's, notice how that's not becoming as much of a scary word anymore too. It just should be a way of life. How do you know, what do you mean you don't know how to cook? And I'll tell these stories and stuff. I've told that story before. That's actually pretty funny, but looking forward. Big Visk, hope you're doing all right. Thank you, Big Visk. Reading How to Hunt the Land, Wallace. Yeah, that's exactly it. One of my favorite jokes is the DNR one year. They chose like a hardball road, a blacktop, and I get it. You got to have boundaries, just dividers. But on one side of the hardball, it was intensive harvest. You could take up to 5 animals. And on the other side of the hardball, where I had my property, and I was only 40 acres away from that line, it was like, you could either take a buck or a doe. Like, animals don't walk across the blacktop, and to go from you can take 5 down to you can only take 1 in less than 80 acres is just, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So yeah, learn how to hunt the land. Know your wildlife. Know when they're coming in. Are the fish spawning? Are they hitting top water? Are they deep? Are they in the estuaries? Are they in, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah, Wallace Robert, you got it, sir. Just put your phone on silent on Lime Street. Hey, thanks, Long Beach. I didn't do that. My phone is not on silent. So don't anybody call. All right. Yeah, Husky Bunch. Yeah, so we're going to be around. We're going to do SOG is going to be my primary focus. And then after the dust settles, or we get a better sense of things in the next 30, 60 days, then we'll entertain, as I said, then we'll probably just do, hey, here's 4 things or here's 8 things, whatever it is. And it's going to probably be different, but it's going to be, only 1 or 2 colorways. We have to. I mean, and then we may not even be able to do it. What if I move to, the UP and Cindy's down in Kentucky? Just think of the logistics, of how we sew a product to a certain level so you can put in the snaps, and then what's she going to ship that up to me? I put in the snaps and I ship it down to her, and then she completes it and then ships it back to me, and then I ship it to you. I mean, it could get a little ridiculous, so we'll figure that out as we go. But thank you very much, Husky Bunch, and good to see you as well. Ground Fog with a high five. Thank you, sir. Dave, no action, no AI here. That is correct, sir. Long Beach, buy more gear. Well, so stay tuned. Like I said, we're going to try to make it happen because we love doing it. And, why not, man? Let's just kind of let's keep it going. Let's kind of semi-retire and make that more of just, hey, if we make a couple $100, we make a couple $100. And that can go a long way. So, we'll do it that way. Evening, Old Man Odin. Crows definitely warn other animals of your presence. Yeah, BCP. Oh, BCP. Nice to see you, sir. Gene with a wow. I'm trying to befriend some crows to guard my chickens. Amen, right? And that's where you get some people like, why do you have a llama? And there's other kind of animals and goats and things like that. Yeah, man. Everybody thinks they're all, predator or prey. Like, no, there's such a, anyway, yeah. See, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. And then while saying, still going good. And that's it. And that's part of the joy, and how long I've been on here. Only 14 minutes. Probably keep it going for about another 15. I'll kind of just reiterate. I'll see if anybody has a specific question or something like that. But no, I mean, that's really it. I mean, I love what we do. I mean, and just all the aspects, and especially the keeping the brain going, right? The keep thinking, keep moving, never quit. Hey, let's come up with this new product. Let's come up with this new design. And I was talking in the chat the other day and the gear chat. And I was like, hey, look, selfishly, we're in this, weird spot. If Cindy gets an offer on her house, you guys know the deal. She's got 30-day window and that clock starts ticking, so that's why we just were just getting as ahead of as we could and just crushing on the orders because we knew this moment was going to come. And then whether it just was a bright idea cutoff. Hey, at this point, we're going to have to shut the store down. And we didn't know exactly when that was going to be, but we knew there was going to be there ain't no point in dinking around because, you could get yourself in big trouble. And I never want to let anybody up. I don't know if you heard that. See, the crow just went by and he's like, that's right. Damn right. Live stream. But he's talking to some other crows over there. Yeah. Animals are just dumb. Right. So probably telling me that there's deer down there. I should get my bow out and get ready and see, there's something right there, just on a little, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but nothing's getting cheaper. So the SOG thing, I'm sorry. And nothing's getting cheaper and it's not going to. This is the new normal now. $6 to $8 for a pound of ground beef, $3 to $4 for a gallon of gas. Go to the grocery store and try to play that Price is Right game. Don't look at the prices. Just look at your objects and then see if you can guess how much, it'll cost you. It's actually not that hard to do because almost everything is between $3 and $5. I mean, these prices aren't coming down. Oh, but gas is down. Dude, gas isn't down. If you're watching, you know who you are. I get schooled me. I was saying, something, and they're like, now gas is not coming down until it's 180, between 180 and 220. I'm like, yeah, you're right, man. I remember those days. And I remember when we were pissed off. That's since I've left the agency, since being here. And you're like, man, it's 230 a gallon. Fudge, You're not seeing any of that stuff again. So the outdoors, nature provides, and they actually want to kind of stop and take that away from you too. But knowing how to forage, putting some venison in your freezer, grouse hunting, chickens, Wallace is talking about, or, goats, or anything you can do that keeps you in the fight, right? And keeps you more self-sufficient. Watch how anything that keeps a person self-sufficient or independent continues to get squeezed out of you. Hey, we want to ban red meat. Well, no one's going to do that. Everybody thinks you're crazy. Okay, well, let's just burn down all the facilities for meat, a lot of, cattle, or euthanize, flocks just because we're saying it. So we push you towards the bugs, or, hey, okay, if you're going to eat it, you're going to pay $20 an hour. And there's all kinds of other, issues behind it. So I'm not going to get into all the economics, and I'm not an economist. So, but you just can see it. You can feel it. So why in the hell wouldn't you want to go and fill your freezer full of some venison or bear or, grouse or rabbit or fish, get out there and start getting it done. That's all I'm kind of getting at. And that's what I'm kind of really liking, because SOG for me, now that we're kind of slowing that down again on the gear side and transitioning from, a gear company to, yeah, we're just some people who love making gear, and we're going to kind of do that as a kind of a hobby retirement thing, on the gear side. So that's one side. But on the SOG, I'm kind of really hoping that gets me in a situation where I can get off my ass and start getting back out there and doing stuff and refreshing my skills. And I'm going to be taking you guys along for a lot of that stuff. I'm kind of figuring out this is going to be the new studio. I got to run some Cat 5 down here and excuse me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more to cover. I don't know if I'll do a live stream next week, but somewhere in the next 2 weeks, in the next 2 weeks, I'll continue putting out content, talking about SOG as it takes shape. Maybe, we do, hey, somewhere in the next 30 days, we get a chance and we make 4 more mothers and we'll just throw them on the website. So again, stay tuned on that. I'll keep you guys posted. And if you got some comments or ideas about, SOG or things that you would like to see. So for me, I'm going to follow, there's all kinds of formats, 10 C's, get home. Mine has always been food, fire, water, shelter, shoot, move, communicate, medicate. Now there's obviously nuances to every one of those things. So I'm looking at, being able to have fun and enjoy focusing on those categories. Sometimes it'll just be a little, short video. Hey, have you thought about this? Hey, you know what time it is? Just basing, hey, tomorrow it's a first quarter moon. What time does it rise? What time does it set? It'll be maybe stuff like that, navigation, medication, again, I still have to figure out the format, what I'm going to do there. But sometimes it'll be in studio. Other times it's going to be out. Sometimes it'll be interactive like this. Other times it'll be, I shot the video and then I had to edit it, and I'm going to have to learn how to do video editing, and then I'll edit the video and then I'll publish it. So just stay tuned on that. All right, let's see if we got any comments. And honestly, boys and girls, I think that kind of sums it all up on my side. So I'll get some comments and I'll kind of reiterate it, and I think we're good for the night. And I'll just tell you one thing right there on that. For about the last 2 to 3 weeks, as we've kind of come to this place and we were shaping all this, I have spent as much time out here on, I just call this the West Deck, just enjoying the end of the day. I can't do a whole lot right now, and that's a different, issue, but just being able to be outside, no shoes, touching grass. Somebody said, yeah, touching grass is good as long as there's not dog doo-doo in there. And I'm like, yeah, good point. But no, just even getting outside and eating up some vitamin D, and I'm kind of out in the country, and you got animals and you get to just relax, and that does the soul a lot of good. That's done me a lot of good, staying away from this, and only using this for a positive tool that I can learn from, as opposed to a time suck that just indoctrinates me to only focus 30 seconds at a time, smooths my brain out and turns me into a goldfish. No bueno, no me gusta, man, no me gusta. VTech and talking to Long Beach. Matt, yeah, and I love the fact that you guys are saying hi to each other, Long Beach, have I sold my gear on other platforms? No, just my website. That's the only place we ever. So if you see the gear for sale, it's somebody else selling it. And I can't stop that, that they bought it, and then like eBay or one of the forums, but I haven't sold on eBay. I haven't sold on any of that stuff. And, and that's actually been brought up. Maybe don't even keep the website, but, I've paid for the website for the whole rest of the year. So it's kind of a sunk cost, could just put it up there, but, I don't know. Yeah, but it's a good point if that's what you're getting at right there. Old man Matt saying hi. A design for a fishing pole holder. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not quite sure how to respond. Somebody did talk to me not too long ago about that, but I don't know if this is the conversation you're mentioning. So, and I think the observation I made, if it's, I basically talked about PVC piping, and then, there may not even be the same thing. So I'm sorry there, Walsh, Robert. I may or be, maybe not. Someone in Esco, Husky Bunch, says llamas. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You'd be like, what, llamas? There's a reason behind that. Somebody's talking smack. It's probably me, Matt. Kelly Stinnett. Yeah, hey, she's late. Howdy, Kelly. It's $6 here in Northern California. Waltz, is that ground beef or gas? Yeah, gas is like basically $4. There's maybe one or two places that are trying to sell it at like $3.60, $3.70. But in essence, it's about $4. And, your ground beef depends if you're doing like 90-10 or 80-20. But yeah, you're looking at $6 to $8. Yep. And then there you go, Long Beach. This is exactly it, and that's not the only one. This has been going on for years. Jack over at Black Scout Survival has been talking about this. I've joined him on some of those conversations. Poultry, but everybody's like, oh, nothing to see here. The only thing that burns up or blows, up anymore is food or the people who had a contract with a foreign country, so, if you build it, we will come. Gene, what the hell are you doing awake, sir? That's pretty early your time. Angry Viking, no, 308. All right, so anybody, I'm sure you guys can see that message by AVV. He's talking about round shortages, and that just goes into another part of the conversation. And if you're into, whether you're into home defense, hunting, or personal defense, or just the sport of it. I mean, these are not easy platforms to master, to be able to shoot a weapon 300 meters and put it in like, this little block. It takes a lot of skill to do that, right? Same with like archery, but AVV, yeah, that's something that has been going on even longer than the attack of our, food manufacturing. So hey, we can't ban these guns, we can't, the Second Amendment, and they do everything. Second Amendment's very clear, cut and dry. Everything that's going on in our country right now is illegal. It's unconstitutional. The Second Amendment is the rule of the law and land and the law of the land, and there it states it. So AVV, I've always thought, because again, this has been going on for at least 10 years, that was part of that whole thing, caused these companies that either sell or have FFLs or manufacture, and then find ways to run them out of business. Hey, I can't ban it, but I'll make it where, remember, just even a few years ago, you couldn't find 22 long rifle. You couldn't find it. And then if somebody got some in, they'd only give you a sleeve of 50 or 100, whatever the size of the box is. They'd only let you get one at a time because they wanted to try to be fair to everybody else, because otherwise it'd be gone like that. So yeah. All right, VTech, thanks for joining us, sir. Yeah, some Ranger Green. Stay tuned. I think that's probably going to be one of our just standard colorways, by the way. I think, Cindy and I got to figure that out, but we're just going to, again, this is now becoming a hobby. So I'm going to be reducing, got thousands of dollars of material, I ain't doing that anymore, right? Not if we're just turning this into more of a hobby. So we're going to settle on one or two colorways. Hey, maybe in the comments after this, if you've made it this far, make a comment if you've got a, hey, I think you should do this colorway and that. But Ranger Green definitely was, high on that list, VTech. So thank you, sir. Big Vis got his Sentinel. That's right. Yeah, if we did that, that might be the only thing we do that month, because it takes over 2 days to do, anyway. Flashlight channel. Thank you, sir. So Kelly, yeah, orders. That's what I'm saying. So we won't do orders. We're going to just, hey, how much time do we have and what's going on in our lives? And then, and the mother, obviously, if we're going to do it, we're going to keep selling the mother, but it'll just be like, like let's say between Howard and Cindy and I manage the logistics. Let's say we do 4 mothers, and that might be all we do that month. And then here it is, 2 in this color, 2 in that color, so. And obviously when we get to that point, I'll come up with a system to advertise and let everybody know. And, and I'll probably just do, hey, at midnight at this day, that's when they'll be on the website, first come, first serve. But it won't be quite like an order like that. And Kelly, you even typed it. Yeah, you've had chances. Follow up, gas. Yeah. Okay. Gas. Yep. That's who you're talking smack to, the clown. Kelly, I don't know about Nemesis. I mean, I want to keep doing it, but again, then we're just looking into manufacturing, we're looking at availability, and quite honestly, I'm probably just going to do 2 solid colors. I hate to say it because, hey, look, I love Nemesis. I'm wearing my, my OP gear Nemesis, boonie cap, because my doctor said I need to start wearing caps that cover up my ears and my face, because he cut a bunch of crap off me today and everything. So, but I love it, and I hate to say it, I'm still struggling to get mine. All the stuff I want in the gear we make in Nemesis. Hey, if we don't do this, I got to make sure I've got a couple Gap pouches and a meat bag and whatnot. But so I don't know if we'll do camouflage, because I love it and I think it's a great camouflage, and Clint has done it from Nemesis, has done a great job with it. And, and he's pushing forward. But, it's just, camouflage, I hate to say it, to some extent also becomes such a personal thing. You got people who want, Woodland M84 or Marpat or whatever. So I might, just because I don't want, if we're going to keep doing this, I want this to be as stress-free for both me and Cindy. So I think we might just not do camo, and, we might just do something like, I don't know, Ranger Green and maybe orange, like X-Pack, that material, because that's for hunting. So if we're all focused on hunting, survival, Ranger Green's a great color. You can make that camouflage in all kinds of different environments. And orange is the survival color, right? And the hunting and all that. So I don't know. Stay tuned. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll end up doing, I don't know. I don't think we're going to even do anything in camouflage, to tell the truth. I think we're just going to find 2 solids, or like maybe a Ranger Coyote Brown, and then, Ranger and something else. We might even just do something like that, but that's too far ahead of my skis right now. I don't want to say something then overcommit, because we really haven't quite figured that part out. So, all right, boys and girls, we're almost at 30 minutes. Get that reserve one. No, it'll be first come, first serve, Kelly. I get that. I can tell you about a surgery I had. It was in routine. F word recovery. Yeah, yeah. So and thank God, at least my knees have held out this long, but my back and my hips aren't haven't. And yeah, none of that's any good. No bueno. So Coyote Brown Gene was saying, yeah, the Ranger Green with the Coyote Brown. Yeah, that probably will be, because that is a very popular color. So yeah, So again, stay tuned. And when we get more in there, maybe we'll have another one of these and say, okay, hey, whoever's here joining with us is going to pick and choose, what we do. And maybe because look at that, I'm going to minimize everything as much as I can, and I might only just buy yardage by the yard from like, not like, for me, I'm buying 100 yards, at a time type of stuff. I might just buy it by the yard, knowing exactly what I need for what we're going to do that month. And maybe we will mix it up a little bit, like, okay, next, hey, next month, what do and if you chime in and say you want it, or get black, well, then you better be one of the people trying to buy the stuff we make in black and etc. And I think that's going to work out because again, I think that's who our customers have been, for the most part anyway. You're all just great people, and it's, that's why we kind of want to keep doing it, and also I get to live vicariously through a bunch of you guys because I get to talk to you and I hear your stories and find out what else is going on in this part of the world. Like, Wallace was just sharing, gas prices out in Cali. You can look at the news and social media, but it's totally different thing if you had somebody who lived in the area and was giving you the direct data, the AFAM, right then and there. So, yeah, I like that. Well, okay, perfect. Well, there we're at 30 minutes, and I think I'll just end it with just reiterating it. So, he's like, yeah, Mark, you said that 20 minutes ago. Long-winded SOB. All right, Mr. Crow, I'm going to take a sip of wine. All right, but so to sum it all up, yeah, we're closed. We won't be taking orders in the future. We won't really be operating like the business that we were. Cindy, moving into retirement, I kind of want to get there as soon as possible, again. And it says, woe is me. There's people out there who've been working their whole life too. You know what I'm talking about. It's just madness when you're in your, almost 60s, and you're like, what the hell am I still working? I've been working since I was 17. Yeah, so that shit's broken. But anyway, so yeah, so we're gonna kind of tone it down, make it a little into more of a hobby. We love making the gear, love interacting with you people, and we know you guys like the gear because you are those people, right? You are the guy, that guy. And so we'll do that. We'll have better answers what it's going to look like here somewhere in the next 30 days as we kind of get closer and figure more things out. And in the meantime, I'm going to push forward with the SOG and start getting more involved and doing a lot more hands-on. And the truth is, we don't know what tomorrow brings, right? I have no idea, what's going to happen. You just look at what's going on in the world today. Nothing's getting better. Again, nothing's getting better. No one's going to come and save you. So, if I can share as much information, much knowledge that I have from my life, which you guys provided, like I was working for the government. I was living off the tax dollars, right? Well, so, whatever I have that's still left up in here, I should figure out how to share it with you guys. And that's what I'm going to do as best as I can. So, and then in the meantime, though, if you got questions, comments, reach out. And then on that note, I really do appreciate everybody who has reached out, left comments and all the well wishes. I mean, I'm not even going to like dwell on it too much because I'll get a little choked up because it is really cool and I really do appreciate it. Last comments here. I got a smiley face. Andrew saying he's fallen in love with woodland. Hey, that material's out there and there's still companies that make it. Yep. Gene chats with Nemesis. Yeah. And again, Clint's such a great guy. What a great opportunity. Andrew Nemesis and with a Nemesis. Yeah. I hear you, man. Hey, Wallace, thank you very much for joining in and being a participant tonight. Really appreciate it. And then, yep, we'll keep everybody updated here on ScrewTube, Instagram, Twitter, or X. I'm going to keep all that. And right now, it's just CLS gear. So, I mean, we'll end up at, it's kind of splitting. We'll still do the gear in that kind of more hobby side. So there's still CLS gear. And then the SOG will be CLS SOG. I'm just going to keep it all under the same umbrella. I mean, I don't need to make any more work for myself right now. So All right. And then everybody just saying thanks. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I'm going to sign off and look like it didn't do too bad on my battery. And thank you for the person to say putting it in silent mode. And that's how you can avoid losing the live stream if somebody does call in. So I'm going to be doing a lot more things. So stay tuned, getting that thing set up. And that's going to be the studio, the training room, working on all this stuff and figuring a lot more out. So stay tuned. I'll be keeping everybody abreast and I really appreciate it. And, until then, keep thinking, keep moving, never fricking quit. All right, everybody, God bless. And I really appreciate it. All right. But I have to, again, I keep the button is right above this other button, and it always makes me think it says OnlyFans. I don't know why. That's the third time, and I know it doesn't say it, but I'm laughing. Like, I could see YouTube having an OnlyFans button. I don't know. I don't know why that's making me chuckle. All right, everybody, be good. We'll talk to you again soon. Woo!